The book of Proverbs, verse 26. The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. Okay, so, hi everybody, this is Christian RPG Gamers. So, I don't know how loud this is going to sound. I think that it might have music for half of it might not for the other. So this is from background footage from the new MMO called Throne and Liberty. So, okay, so yeah, I think I want to make this video on. I'm just gonna give some of my thoughts on the game. This isn't like a super heavy in-depth review or anything. It's just some of my thoughts from my experience from the game so far. So I was watching this streamer. Her name is called Zara. It's called again, I can't speak half the time. It's called Zara or Zara. And I watched her play this for a while. So it became free to play. Okay, so I'm not sure my critique entirely is going to be. Okay, so for the story, it honestly, okay, so I'd say graphics-wise, this has pretty good graphics. Now, it was cutting out a little bit for some of the cutscenes, but I think overall, it's generally speaking, it's a pretty good-looking game. The story is definitely pretty interesting. So yeah, it is very high fantasy. Again, as a Christian, they have sorcerers and stuff. I don't know. Generally speaking, I think biblically, magic is generally a bad thing, but I'm also willing to accept the fact that, it's a fantasy world, so sometimes just stuff is what it is. But you can make a great story. You can watch, some cool cutscenes, some interesting characters. I think if you just kind of set aside your sense of reality, you can choose to have a good time. And if you just don't worry about it too much, right? You know that objectively certain things are bad, but you can't control it either. So, again, I would say it's definitely a fun game to play though. I mean, at least what I can tell so far. It's a little bit on the dark fantasy side. Again, I'm not going to go too heavy into the spoilers. I know I have some of the cutscenes here. I mean, they shouldn't have the voices. Again, I'm not sure if the music's going to be playing or not, but we'll see what happens. And I know the music will play at some point. But the people in this, I mean, again, I'm not really even sure exactly what's going on in the story, to be honest, at certain points, but yeah, so some kind of a wizard guy and these people, they're trying to protect the children in their keep. They kind of fled back to a church of some kinds. It's a fantasy world. They have churches. I mean, again, I don't know. Take it for what you will, right? But again, they were being good people, trying to protect their people and trying to protect their children against some some evil dark witch or something. It has some pretty cool. It has some pretty cool epic moments. Yeah, I mean the combat is. I feel like the combat's pretty good too. To be honest, it's a simple game. It's not overly complex, but it is generally, at least from what I can tell so far, it is pretty fun. Yeah, I got the big flying whale. Again, there is a lot of fantasy aspects to this. I mean, it's on the very higher end of fantasy. But I mean, I enjoy just about all the genres. You can, I feel like in life, you can choose to look for the positives, or you can just hyper focus on the negatives. I mean, I'd rather just enjoy myself, in holiness, glorify God, and just have a good time. Try not to do, darkness if possible, but just accept that certain things are fantasy. It doesn't make everything good either, but I personally, I don't wish to be the moral authority. I just want to have a good time, right? And I try to be a moral person, but just have fun. Because I usually have said in my old description, like going on like an adventure, right? Again, like if you go into like the nitty gritty of the series, I mean, obviously it's a free to play game, so there's going to be a lot of, yeah. I mean, I haven't gotten that far myself, granted, but I really only got through about the kind of like getting into the main game. But I'm sure there's microtransactions. I don't know if it really blocks your ability to play the game too much. But I will say this. Since it's a free-to-play game, I mean, you might as well just download it, right? And just give it a shake. I mean, you don't have to spend any money on it. And if you do like the game, maybe inside, if you really enjoy this, and maybe spend some money. Like you should support things you care about and you want to succeed. I do think that is having a level of moral integrity. Because then you can't control the universe, but you can control yourself. In holiness, you have to answer to the Lord. No, if you don't want to spend money on it, don't spend money on it. But don't expect it to succeed and be around either. I would also make the same argument, like you like to play, you go to a local card shop. If you never give any money, you never spend any money, you never buy a booster pack or like a D&D book or something, or a little Warhammer mini, or you never invest or care about your community. Eventually the community is probably going to die, and you ought to support things you care about or that you're a part of, or find things you want to care about, and at least maybe consider just trying. And maybe you can't invest in everything, but I mean, again, like this game though is free, so I mean, yeah, you might as well just give it a chance. And it is very good looking. I think that's a net positive in a new game, right? And again, like it has a lot of open world. So from what I can tell, I've heard some reports. I think I watched a video from this guy. I think it's called Force Gaming. Is that his name? I can't remember. I mean, I do like the guy. Quite a bit. He's kind of like a white guy with like a beard. I don't know. I think it might be his name. If not, it's some guy out there. But I mean, I think I've watched him from Asmongold before, so I remember who he is a little bit. He's generally a pretty nice guy, but he was giving his critique, and one of the big things about this game, so this game has a lot of PvP in it, and it has like PvP kind of like bled into the PvE. Now, I think to some people that's really, really nice, but some people that might piss them off quite a bit. So I mean, like going in with like a realistic expectations is healthy. Like I do enjoy PvP at times, especially if it's good, right? Oh, but I don't really. I mean, I don't know. I play like all the different genres though, all the different settings, all the different genres. But I personally am a pretty big fan of PvE. What do you call it? Player versus environment, and there's player versus player. I like it when games have player versus player, but I usually like them to be very designated to very specific areas that aren't gonna like come into my world when I enjoy it. So, but there's a lot of player versus player in this game. So, some people like that though, and some people are gonna have a good time. Okay, so games I would compare this to. So I think the obvious is this game is very similar to Dragon Age Inquisition, from what I can tell. It has deep similarities to that game. It even kind of looks like it a little bit. Get this little like teddy bear thing. Again, I also just want to say there is a lot of magic in this game, but it's like, again, like it is a high fantasy. And if I'm just being honest with somebody, most high fantasy do have a lot of sorcery in it. I mean, again, it is what it is. I mean, we know what stuff is bad in general, but if you can also just disassociate yourself from reality, it's like maybe just try to avoid it if possible. Like if you have the option, you don't have to play as like a sorcerer. Just play play as someone who tries to use very little magic. And I think you'd be a lot better off. Yeah, because like the main character, he can like, or he or she can shapeshift into some kind of an animal. So it has like, you're kind of like a druid a little bit. How long was this? 22 minutes. Yeah, I mean, again, I didn't really get too far into the game I didn't really go too into the nitty gritty of the game mechanics, the number crunching and like, getting all the upgrades and all the stuff. So I don't know exactly just how difficult that stuff fully is yet. But I know you can use melee and you also can use a ranged weapon. And generally you lock onto an enemy and you just continuously will keep fighting. And then you can press like a button down, like L2. I think it's like L2 or it's R1. Then you press one of the four, what do you call them, like little, the keys on your controller, right? And oh yeah, again, okay, I guess I was trying to say, yeah, you activate the keys on your controller, and then you can activate one of your abilities, and they go on cooldown mode. And again, like as another thing, I would say there are a lot of cool enemies you can fight. Like some of the boss enemies are definitely pretty cool. And they have some big enemies. Again, they have some cool stuff you can fight. And that's one thing I do like. I want to be a little more positive, right? One thing I do like a lot about a lot of fantasy is they have some really cool stuff you can fight. And I do like a lot of big bads, and I enjoy a lot of like this kind of stuff. Again, it reminded me a little bit of The Witcher 3. It also reminded me a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3. Just from like, I think just from like the setting and maybe just from some of the storytelling. I mean, obviously, it's not a phenomenal story or anything, but it's definitely like, it's at least intriguing. Or at least it's intriguing so far. Obviously, it is an MMO, not a single player game. So it has like limitations to just how much you really can do or not do. And like there are other players in the world. But I also would say like, no, it is a new game. And like sometimes, to be honest, I just enjoy a fresh world and just some fresh stuff to do in the game with some new ideas and some new abilities. A little bit different story. It's like not every game has to fully reinvent the wheel 100%. And since this is a free-to-play game, again, if I only play this game for like an hour or two, and I never play it again, to tell you the truth, it's not that big of a deal to me. The same with a lot of free-to-play games. Again, especially if it's like, quote-unquote, like a good game, right? Not just some garbage mobile game, like an actual, like, decent game, or at least they put some kind of effort into it. If you play it at least so you can get out of the intro area, you can probably have a good time. Like, again, like, this boss is pretty cool. Some of these games, they do have some very cool stuff you can do. And, like, you definitely can have a fun time. And they had a decent tutorial. Because that is one thing I do like a lot about like video games in general. It's just like a good boss fight. And like, again, I do love venturing the worlds. Like, I love going around and like exploring places and finding new stuff you can do, picking up new loot, different cool stuff. And like I generally speaking, unless it's like a true like RPG game, if it's probably just a linear game, like, you're not going to be making too many choices in the world. I think that's fine at the end of the day. As long as you have like healthy expectations. Like, a lot of these games are like linear, again, like, it reminds me a little bit like I was playing Final Fantasy 16. Again, like, definitely a cool game. Like, obviously some of those are like super high-end AAA that I was probably mentioning. So comparing this game to like super high-end AAA, yeah, this game is gonna fall short quite a bit. Now I'm pretty sure it's backed by Amazon, so like they do have a lot of money. Now Amazon's kind of fickle sometimes too, but they have like, a bajillion money, right? But yeah, I mean, I would be interested in maybe watching the story and seeing what comes from this. Again, like, I'm just not sure just how far this is really gonna go. I don't know. Again, like, this game, it had a huge burst of players. It might slow down a bit. And like, I do like the epicness though at times. The little I don't even know what that thing is. Some kind of a little doll. But again, like, they had the Nino Kuni game has a little figure thing that follows around with you. And I think so does, what's the other game? The Genshin Impact. It can make an interesting story. It can also be very obnoxious, to be honest. Like, it's a 50-50. It's like, if that thing talks for you the whole game, that is extremely obnoxious. But, I mean, I don't know for sure. I can't quite remember, but again, some of these cutscenes, though, they were pretty good. Like, that, it's hard for me to deny that. Very epic, very cinematic. It was a little bit like, what's the word, like, cliche. Like, you kind of expect these kind of things. But a great story at the end of the day. Yeah, like, no, this guy was like, he was going to protect, all his children or something. Again, it reminded me of, like, Lawful Good. Oh, yeah, so so I think there's one big cutscene before it. They had like I didn't time it. I think it had like a 3-minute long major cinematic cutscene before you get into the main game. I think this is all kind of the tutorial island or whatever. But now it had a little bit of some problems, I think, performance-wise, just from rendering the major cutscene. Which, I mean, I'm not gonna be too harsh with it. Now, I think I played it the first day it came out free to play. I also might have played the second day. I think it was Tuesday. Yeah, what's day? Wednesday. Or maybe I played on Monday. I can't quite remember, but it had a little bit of trouble rendering it. They're probably gonna fix that. But to be honest, it was like a 3-minute long, like, really in-depth. Like, I think it was all linked together too. It was a pretty awesome cutscene. And yeah, it was like probably at 80%, not 100%. But it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, I have no idea what the sound's gonna sound like on this. Because I mean, I try to turn the voices off. I try to turn the sound effects off, so that way it doesn't interfere with the video when I speak. But it might. The music should be on, but it's hard to always tell, right? And like, again, like, some of the cast. The cast was pretty interesting. Again, like, okay. So obviously it's a little bit morally gray, but like, again, like, you can turn into like this eagle. Again, like, it's very cool, right? And it's like kind of like knowing Harry Potter a little bit. Like, he's flying with that what's called like a hippogriff. Or I honestly, I'm sure I butchered that terribly. Again, like, like, you could shapeshift. And again, I really don't know how to justify it. A lot of this stuff, again, it's a very high fantasy. So, but I mean, I just want to have a fun, good time. So, I'm not going to worry about it too much. But you gotta be aware that, like, in Holiness, God does condemn sorcery, but it's also just a fun game, right? Like, I think it's almost like 2.5 minutes. And you might have to go through and watch this cutscene yourself. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just my PlayStation 5. I was recording the PS5. It struggled a little bit to like render properly. It might have, honestly, it might have just been on my own end. So again, just don't judge the game too harshly for that. I'm sure they're going to get it fixed out. But again, I do love awesome cinematic scenes like these. It feels like it was a pretty almost like a one long shot scene too. Oh yeah, there's just so many bosses and so many stuff to do. And again, I don't know how much I really expect for this game. I also don't know how long this game actually is, or how long the main story is supposed to be for the base game. We'll find out, I guess, or I can do some more research into it. But overall, it does seem, so at least so far, I feel like it's a pretty cool game. I mean, that much I'll give it, right? Now, I could be wrong too. So again, like if you like a lot of PvP, you also like some PvE. You enjoy a good story, you want to have some fun. You want to go around the map and explore a bunch of the map and do a bunch of stuff and get a bunch of cool loot and fight some bosses. Hang out with some friends. I wouldn't put like my highest expectations in this, but you could probably get a good 10-20 hours out of this to have a good time. Now, granted, I was playing Elder Scrolls Online, and then I was also playing Final Fantasy 14. So it's like, my expectations for MMOs are like crazy high. And this game is a new game, so I don't want to judge this game on the same scale of like ESO and like FF14. So it's like, and again, I was playing The Witcher 3 and Baldur's Gate 3. And I was playing some of these other games. So I mean, like, I don't want to judge it too harshly. But I was fighting some. Oh, this is from Final Fantasy 14. Okay. So yeah, those are some of the cutscenes. I mean, I don't want to spoil. I'm trying not to. I don't want to spoil it too much. But yeah, overall, I would say it's a cool game. Just consider giving it a chance. Again, like, it is free, so it's like, no, there's that. But yeah, again, like, we'll see what happens. We'll see if this game sticks around. Some MMOs stay, some MMOs flop. You never really know, but it'd be cool to have another one, and I would enjoy having another MMO. And I feel like some of these types of games, to be honest, I might just play an MMO for like an hour, or I might not play an hour. I mean, like, I might play an MMO like once every 3 to 6 months, or like once a year. I might come back to a game. I might play a game for a while, and I might come back to it every once in a while. So we'll have to see, right? And yeah, I guess, like, just have a good time if you want to play it. Glorify God in heaven. And yeah, let me know what your thoughts of the game is, or how far have you gotten. And oh yeah, I guess one other thing I'll say, I don't know if this game has a huge variety. Now, I didn't get that far into it. I don't know, it doesn't seem like the traditional MMO. So I know you have a couple different skill classes and trees, but like, it doesn't seem like there's a massive variety, at least not so far. But again, we'll see what happens. Yeah, but just if you like the idea of it, give it a chance. Have a little faith. Trust in God. All right. Oh yeah. As I want to say in most of my videos going forward, I'll just play this for a minute. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about it. And do you like MMO games? And are you willing to give new MMOs a chance, even if they might flop? And how much are you willing to invest time or money into a new game? Because again, like, you never know, it could be a hidden gem. It could be garbage, but it could be a hidden gem. So yeah, thanks for watching. God is good.